Hi, welcome to the Get Strong and Healthy podcast. My name is Anna Clow. Thank you for being here. Today, we're talking how to optimize your training. This podcast is going to have some gems in here for you on how you can really get the most out of what you're doing in the gym. Okay, this video is a excerpt from a program that I'm running with my clients. So you're going to hear in this podcast or in this video that I am referencing my clients, and using me as their coach and, the way I'm programming for them. So just know that that is kind of the context that this video or podcast is coming from. But I really thought that this information was awesome to also turn into a podcast. So that is why we are also uploading it here. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about exercise execution. This matters more than a lot of people think and can really make all the difference in your progress. So if your goal is to get the most out of your training sessions, like I assume, all of us want to optimally progress best that we can, this is what is going to be super important to focus on and to understand and to implement. I'm sure that at least one of these things you could improve on. Okay. And, maybe there's some things in here that are going to be a great reminder for you, or maybe some of this is like new information. So wherever you are with that, taking this into your next training session, into, this next week, and really implementing these concepts are going to make all the difference in your training. Okay. First thing we're going to talk about is form. Form is king when it comes to lifting weights, okay? It is way cooler to properly execute a movement with proper form, and maybe the weight is lighter, versus just slinging around super heavy weights, with crappy form, not even hitting depth, just to say that you could move the weight, right? You see this a lot with people who maybe, there's sometimes people, meaning I've done this myself, right? No one's excused from this, is we've oftentimes maybe slung a lot of weight on the leg press and we are like, oh yeah, so strong, whatever. And then you maybe see yourself doing it in a video or something and it was only like a quarter of the way down, right? So remembering that the goal isn't to just move weight to move weight. We want to move weight well, okay? So form comes first. Form is going to be of utmost importance, whether your goal is muscle gain, strength gain, right? Form comes first. So with the exercises that are programmed for you, making sure you are looking at the videos and really watching the videos for the different little intricacies of the movement. Sometimes if you have to rewatch a video, cool, go ahead, rewatch it, right? And making sure you're seeing and you're picking up on, all right, what are the different little things that I need to focus on, okay? And with that, really monitoring yourself in the mirror or recording videos, watching yourself back, that can help a ton with you being able to pick up on, oh, I'm doing this wrong, or like this little thing I think could be better. Okay. And on top of this, as your coach, I would love for you to send me videos. Okay. Send me form videos, any exercise that you want feedback on. I would love to review it for you and give you feedback. Okay. Sometimes maybe you feel like you have the exercise down, but you still want to send it anyways, and I still have feedback for you. Okay. Remembering that, even high level athletes need form feedback, right? Me being, lifting for, 7-ish something years, I still send form videos to my coach because there's always something to learn. There's always something that, maybe another set of eyes is going to see that you're not seeing yourself. Okay, so form comes first. Second is tempo. Tempo meaning the pace at which you are performing a movement. Okay, this one is huge and something that I tend to easily get away from if I'm not reminding myself is to control your movements. Okay, you want to control the weight. You don't want the weight to control you. Okay, if you're letting, a lat pull down bar just like pull you up, that's not you controlling it. You want to control that on the way up. That is going to be so much more beneficial for muscle building, for strength gain, if you are controlling it the whole way. Okay. And so tempo, you could have a tempo of a 1 second count. Like let's take a bicep curl. You could go like this. Okay. Or you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, big squeeze, and then down, a similar fashion. Okay. So that's kind of the difference in tempo. We don't always have to go super slow, 4-second tempo on the, on the up and the down. Tempo is something to always kind of pay attention. We want to slow things down. We want to be controlled. And if you have tempo programmed, sometimes I am actually programming in, hey, we're going to go, 4 seconds on the way down here. Make sure you are following that. Okay, but a general rule of thumb for most all exercises, you're going to want to be doing them with a controlled tempo, okay? So it doesn't have to be anything crazy unless that's programmed for you, but, really controlling it like a 2-3 second is going to be awesome. And think about it like this. Oftentimes let's take a bench press, for example, okay? When you are coming down, it's probably better to slow it down, make that controlled, and then off the chest, pressing, that doesn't have to be so slow, okay? That's the concentric, meaning you are, going up, right? You are contracting the muscle, concentric. That, focusing more on a little bit more of the power of that versus slow, slow, slow will be great. Okay, so typically the eccentric, right, the coming down, or if it's a lat pull down, the eccentric is technically going up, right? That is going to be better to slow down. Okay, oftentimes slowing down the eccentric, the concentric doesn't have to be, so slow. That's kind of the general rule of thumb that I want you guys to bring into your training. So think about controlling the weight, not letting the weight control you, and that is going to make a huge difference in your gains and your progression in the gym. Okay, range of motion. This is similar to form, but range of motion means the range at which you are executing a movement. So let's take squat as a really great example here. If you're squatting a fourth of the way down, right? You're doing a quarter squat. That is not going to be as beneficial for you as going all the way down to 90 degrees or a bit lower. Okay, that's the squat down to parallel is going to be way better for muscle building. That's where we want to be for, if the goal is to build optimal strength. Okay, we want to be taking our body through a fuller range of motion. And if any of you guys in here have done stability ball crunches, so like crunches on a yoga ball where you kind of like extend a little bit further back, you get more of a stretch in your core, and then you sit up. That's a really great example of getting a greater range of motion, okay? We take your abs, your core, through a greater range of motion than when we are just, maybe being stopped by the floor. So that's why I really love those crunches. I program for those for you guys a lot. So, and when we go through a greater range of motion, we're going to get better muscle building effects from it, okay? So making sure you are getting a full range of motion with the exercises that you're doing. And if you can't get a full range of motion, like with a squat right away, it does take time to build up to, and sometimes even a additional mobility plan, for you. And so make sure you're sending me your form videos, and this is something we will work on together. Okay, rest. Your rest is programmed for you in your program. And this is very important to follow, okay? Those aren't written in there just, for funsies. It is important that we are resting the correct amount of time. So typically you'll see that towards the beginning of a workout, I'm having you rest longer. That is because typically those movements are more taxing. They're compound movements. So we're using, multi-joint type things going on. It's really kind of, you can think of it like a bigger movement, right? A squat versus a bicep curl, right? So those movements, and then also typically we're going more for strength versus muscle building. So longer rest towards the beginning is going to be best for coming into that next set being, fully regenerated, just as strong, right? It's not working out isn't necessarily about just, I want to feel exhausted. I want to, feel like I did it, right? That's when people start to turn weights into cardio. Okay, that's not the goal here. We are trying to optimally lift, and that doesn't always mean that we're going to be like, dying, like sweating profusely, right? Sometimes, but, making sure that each set, you are optimally performing that set. Okay, if you don't rest enough time, you're going to go into that next set not as strong. You're going to go into that next set, not being able to give what you could have if you did rest enough. Okay, and then over time, that leads to not making progress as fast, not improving as you really could. Okay, so that is why resting the proper time is so important. Okay, and then you don't want to rest too long. I'm totally guilty of this a lot of the time. There's like a joke about how, powerlifters, people who, more like strength athletes, or it's strength is their favorite, they like to, whip out their lawn chair to sit by the squat rack. But yeah, sometimes I will kind of, maybe get distracted between sets and let my rest go too long. So that's something I have to be really intentional about, because when you rest too long, that can also have that negative effect of you're coming into your set, maybe you're like not even as warm anymore, right? Maybe you are, you're just not going to optimally perform the movement as if you were on the correct sort of pace. Okay, so making sure you are resting the right amount of time is going to be huge. Okay, and last thing here is the importance of intensity. Okay, so training at that correct RPE, right? If you remember, we talked about RPE in another video, or maybe that's coming up. I'm not sure, but chances are we've talked about RPE together. Okay, so RPE is just a way that we gauge your intensity. So we want to be training at an intensity that is going to drive stimulus, muscle building stimulus, strength building stimulus to our bodies. If we're lifting weights and we're not really, the intensity's like a 4 out of 10, we're just kind of going through the motions, we're not really pushing ourselves, we're not really sending any sort of signal to our bodies like, hey, the signal should be, hey, you need to build muscle, you need to get better, you need to get stronger, or else next time she tries to do this, whatever she's doing, we're not going to be able to do it. Okay, so that's kind of like what your body's feeling is like, dang, like I need to change, I need to adapt in response to this stimulus, because it is so strong, right? So if you're not seeing progress in the gym, chances are you probably aren't training at a high enough intensity, okay? And again, intensity doesn't mean you're, sweating, you're not resting, right? It really means that you are picking a weight that is getting you like close to almost failing, and sometimes failing, right? It's okay to fail. It's okay to, get to that last rep and you're like, so close, and you didn't get it, right? That's a great sign that you were right there at failure, okay? So, we don't want to train to failure every single set. That's probably going to be way stressful on the body and also very much not necessary, okay? But training where we are oftentimes getting close to failure and sometimes pushing to failure is an amazing place to be, and that's where we're going to really drive the most results from what we're doing. Okay, so follow your RPE And with that, sometimes people don't really know how to feel their RPE, which is totally understandable. It's like, it can be hard to gauge. So if that's you, I recommend you really push a couple sets to full failure, okay? So, for example, let's say you're doing bicep curls, okay? And you get 10 reps, okay? And you're prescribed to do 10 reps, so then you get 10 reps. But you decide, I just want to see how many I can do. I'm going to push for it, okay? Then you keep going, and you can get all the way to like 18, okay? That means that you were not training nearly intense as would have been beneficial, okay? We want to be, leaving maybe 2 reps in the tank oftentimes. 2 to 3 reps left in the tank is generally a great place to be. Sometimes only 1 or sometimes 0 left in the tank. But we don't want to have that many reps left in the tank before failure, because that's not going to be as optimal for building muscle, for building strength, as really pushing the intensity would, okay? So, sometimes, just a side note, if you are dealing with hormonal issues, if you are, stressed Sally, and we're really working together on lessening the stress load on your body, sometimes backing off on that intensity for a season of your training is going to be required. And that's something that we'll talk about. Okay. So knowing that, every week of every training cycle, we don't have to push to like, this high intensity all the time, nor should we. But yeah, sometimes backing off will be good for your body, right? It doesn't have to be like we're always pushing optimal intensity all the time. But knowing that if you're not, that's probably why you're not progressing with your gym things as you wish you were. So that is what I got for you when it comes to exercise execution. And one more thing I'll end this video off on is the difference between training for strength and training for muscle building, okay? I'm not going to get into all the intricacies of the difference in programming because that's my job, okay? But I think it's really cool for you to understand the kind of difference in the goals here, okay? So most of us want to get stronger and build more muscle, okay? Most of us aren't just focused on muscle building or just focused on building strength, okay? And even if you are just focused on one or the other, there's going to be overlap in how programming happens, how, exercises happen, all of that. But if your let's say your number one goal is building just strength, the goal of exercising is going to be making the heaviest weight feel as light as you can, okay? And if your goal is muscle building, that training style is going to be, I want to make, whatever this weight is, feel as hard as it can. And sometimes that means the weight is a bit lighter, right? So really going for more of the squeeze, right? Going for more of a pump with muscle building, right? Slowing things down even more, right? If we're going for maximal strength, we don't want to necessarily do like a super slow rep per se. Sometimes, yes, that'll be programmed, but kind of knowing that when it comes to muscle building, it doesn't always have to be the heaviest weights that we're moving. It's how we move it that's going to drive muscle building. If the goal is maximizing strength, the goal isn't to, it's to make the heavy weights feel and move as easy as possible. Okay. So if that's like over your head, or if you're like, Anna, how does that apply to me? I wouldn't worry about it. But if you have questions on that, I'd love to dive deeper with you if you do have questions and you want to talk about it. Alrighty. That's all I got for you, and I'll see you in the next one.